In the last video we covered painting the grays on the rock faces. In this video we're going to cover the green base coat, which will be going under our flock. We'll be using two colors, the Craftsmart grass green, just the darker color here, and the shamrock light green, which is here. And these are just two plastic cup lids that I've used as makeshift paint trays, and two brushes. They're both old brushes. Again, this is for a base coat, so it doesn't matter how good the brush is. I have a smaller one to use for the light green, which will be going around the outer edge of the green, and then a larger one to paint the large areas on the inside for the dark green. The first thing we need to do is get a rough outline of the area we're going to paint green. So to do that, I'm going to use some of this light shamrock green, and I'm just going to start going around the area that I feel it should be. There is no trick to this. It does not have to be precise, because all of the green areas will be outlined with our browns. So any mistakes that we make with this green, we can tidy up with the brown. I'm trying not to stick my noodle in the camera here, so if I look like I'm painting funny, that's why. Again, don't have to be real precise with this. Probably going to have to do two coats to get good coverage anyway, since we're painting on black. But that's fine. Okay, now that we have a rough outline, I'm going to go in and thicken it up a little bit. I know I'm using real technical terms there a little bit, but I don't really know how else to say it. Just get a little bit on your brush. There we go again. Just get a decent amount on your brush and dab it around where it's slightly thicker. It looks like it's pooling up some. That's what we want to happen for the next part. Okay, I think that's probably good enough, and I hope that's coming through on the camera. Okay, now set your brush aside for the moment and get your other brush. I'm going to get some of this dark paint, and if you have any drips on this area of the table, don't worry about it. Again, we're going to be covering with brown, so that makes no difference whatsoever. So now we're going to paint the inside. I'm going to leave a little gap between the two greens. And I am putting this on heavy. And we're going to be covering this with flock, so you're not really worried about showing brush strokes, although with this type of paint and on this table you won't see brush strokes anyway. Only in dry brushing portions would you have to worry about that, so don't worry about getting it on too thick. It'll dry fine. Okay, I think that's probably good enough there. Alright, now what I'm going to do is what some painters would call wet blending for the miniatures. I'm just going to use my brush to pull some of the lighter color into the darker. You typically want to stay around the edge when you do this. Try not to get any in the center. So we want the center to be nice and dark. Okay, we're going to set that brush aside, and now we're going to get our other brush and go back in and dab a little more in around the outer edge. So little of this dark green color will be getting on this brush. Don't worry about changing out brushes in between, or mixing these two paints together. It's not that big of an issue. If you're doing it on a miniature where you have layers that are going to be showing, or if you're doing an area that's not going to be basically entirely covered with flock, yes, you would want to change colors. Yes, you want to keep your paints good and separated, but for what we're doing here, that's not even worth changing brushes each different time you dip it, so don't worry about that. Go back and get a little more of this dark green, and we're going to tap it around in here. Okay, I think that's just about got it. So now when this dries, I'm going to come back and do the same thing again, just to make sure that the dark underneath the black is not showing through. So this will be our first base coat. So as you can see, I've gone ahead and painted the second layer of our base coat green, the dark green, the light green, and then blending the two in the center. It definitely needed a second coat. As you can tell here, this piece only has one coat down, and there is a significant amount of black showing through, so definitely two coats. It could probably even use three, but it's really not necessary since this entire area is going to be covered with the flock. And you can see here the edges are pretty rough. Doesn't have a uniform paint job, uniform edge around the exterior parts. That's fine. Our next step will be to paint in the browns, and we will take care of all those edges and make sure that they look good. And I think that's about it. Once we get done with the browns, then we'll be ready to put the flock over this area. You will not see the paint underneath. This is just a shade layer. Once the flock is down, it will look lighter around the edge, darker in the center, and hopefully that will give us a good transition between the dark areas of the flock moving into the lights that will be on the brown path. So that is it, and we will pick up in the next video.